instantaneously, I thought, what could bring a young, healthy male down like that? I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that a healthy young man just collapsed and died. To me, there was nothing that could do that. I mean, I even went through, was he choking? Was he maybe struck by lightning? Your brain just can't figure it out. So his autopsy was perfect. They ran, I think they said like 400 different chemicals that all came back negative. So at that point is when I kind of sought out other moms that this had happened to, because I'm like, I've never heard of such a thing. So then when I spoke to other moms about, yep, same thing happened to my son or daughters, when I realized, oh, there could have been something else that caused this. We just don't know. We don't have a name, we have a name for it, but we don't have an underlying reason as to why the heart suddenly stopped. So in a way, it's brought me a lot of comfort, just because I felt so lonely. I talked to moms who'd sons or children had died in car accidents or cancer or suicide or even drug overdoses. There were so many parents I had talked to, and I'm like, none of these people match what happened to Logan. I mean, I know it's not going to bring him back or change how he died, but at least you have that comfort of other parents that understand that part.
Right. And not feeling so alone, or like possibly this is some kind of a punishment or something that we did wrong. You
Right.
know, the
Yeah.
guilt is overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about Logan. How was he as a kid or as a person?
Of course, he's my son, so he's wonderful and perfect. I mean, he loved his friends. Friends are really, really important to him. Of course, he was 19 when he passed away, so his friends meant the world to him. Loved his girlfriend, Kylie. They'd spent a lot of time together. He was so excited to be going away to college. I mean, high school, he did well. He had friends. It just wasn't his passion, I guess. So that summer before college, he was just so excited, getting his room ready, getting to know his roommate better. Loved school. He finally found out how to make it work academic wise. And, of course, the other side is kind of having fun. But, he loved college life, loved his friends, loved McDonald's French fries. um, and he was just an avid hockey fan. He had played hockey in middle school for a few years and just continued that love by watching the NHL. I mean, his favorite team was the Washington Capitals. So everything was hockey, hockey, hockey. He used to take his friends. We have a rink not too far from here that they would freeze up in the winter. So a bunch of his friends would go out there and just do pickup hockey games. And so, I think he had kind of come into his own. He turned 19 in September. And just kind of found himself. That can kind of be an awkward age, I think, when you're junior, senior in high school. It's like, oh, what's my future going to hold? What am I going to do? So he really had found himself. He just was a loving, he understood people. He could meet someone and just read them, not in a bad way, but in a good way, just like to make them feel comfortable, or again, say something to make someone laugh, if there was that uncomfortableness. But he just had a really unique personality. I think the one thing that comforts me the most, though, is a lot of his friends he had gone to kindergarten all the way up to high school with. So this community we live in is fairly small. So a lot of the friends he'd had since he was in kindergarten. So I just used to love them or his friends talk about old stories when Logan was little, things as a parent, I think you pay attention to, but maybe not as much detail, because looking back, I think someone said hindsight's always 20/20. You just see a lot more. So I just love them repeating their stories, whether it be their adventures together, going out in the community, McDonald's runs, getting French fries, just, day-to-day stuff that young people just thrive on.
I think those young memories, like you said, those really do make an impact, because one of my son's friends messaged me a couple months ago and talked to me about how I used to come and read to the class when they were in first grade. And I think that was a godsend, because I used to, like, when this first happened, I would think about all of my regrets as a parent and things that I didn't do. And I was so much more involved when he was really young. And I wondered if he remembered those things, because we never talked about it. So when his friend reached out and told me that he remembered me coming to the class and reading, that was kind of a comfort, because I knew that if he remembered, then Damani probably remembered too.
Right.
So those
Oh,
things are just blessings.
Yeah. No, and I've often said too, it's like you said, I kind of went back after all this happened because then you start looking at yourself as a parent. Oh gosh, did I love him enough? Did he know I loved him? But now looking back, I really can honestly say I didn't have any regrets. I often told my kids how much I love them. I tried as much as I could to be a part of their lives, to be at their events, to cheer them on. I mean, of course, once they got to be teenagers, that got to be a little bit harder because they kind of go out into the world and you lose that little bit of closeness to them. But yeah, I feel like I don't have any regrets. I feel like Logan knew without a doubt how much I loved him and that I was one of his biggest supporters, even though I had to discipline him. I mean, there wasn't always perfect times, but I mean, deep down inside, I knew he knew that I loved him. And, we had a lot of great memories together. I think his last on the field probably was middle school. So I'd say 8th grade, he did cross country. Um, he did football and hockey. He finished like in 7th grade. So no, he didn't play sports in high school or college.
Okay. Okay. And I ask because, a lot of people think that this is just an athlete thing. This only
Right.
happens to athletes, but it happens to athletes, non-athletes, healthy kids, kids with conditions. It does not discriminate. So, but prior to Logan's incident, had he been feeling ill? Had he had any symptoms or signs or anything that would cause alarm looking back?
No, and I kind of went through all this with the medical examiner, because again, you take for granted that your kids are so healthy. I do, looking back, remember every now and then he would say he felt like his heart was racing. And of course, he was 18 at this time. So I remember saying to him, talk to your doctor about it. Talk to your doctor about it. Looking back at his medical records that I now have access to, I don't think he ever brought it up because he had gone to the doctor like once or twice before he went to college. And I don't remember seeing him bringing it up. But I do know, I remember him saying that. I can't remember how often, but he did say it feels like my heart is racing. And to me, I thought, oh, it could be anxiety, you're dehydrated. I'm like going through all these things. You just don't take it. I don't want to say serious, but I wasn't like alarmed by it.
Because no one teaches us to be alarmed by it. They never, like, he didn't say it was painful, right? He just said that
No.
it was beating fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's so much that, looking back, if we knew that our kids could die, we would
Yeah.
take it more because we took other things seriously. I mean, I don't know about you, but there's a lot of things that I was very overly cautious about. Like, I remember even telling Damani not to stand in front of the microwave.
I remember.
Because we've always heard that those waves can cause damage. We don't have any proof of who it's harmed, but we know to tell kids not to tell people not to stand in front of the microwave, but we don't know the things relating to the heart that you should look at for a young, healthy looking kid to be aware of.
Well, and I think there's so many things that can imitate. It could be anxiety. It could be, like I said, maybe your diet or maybe you're not used to being active and all of a sudden you got up and your heart starts racing. So I think as a parent, I kind of made like excuses for that, or it could be this or this. I didn't want to be like hyper vigilant, like, oh, every little thing we've got to talk to your doctor about. But I know when he said it, he seemed concerned. So that was the point. I was like, well, talk to your doctor about it. It's probably this, and this,
Yeah.
rule it out. But the interesting thing with Logan is he must have had some little issues with his heart maybe 3-4 years ago, because in 2014, or 6 years ago, I'm sorry, he did have an EKG. I remember getting all his medical records and like, oh, he had an EKG at that time. And I can't remember why he had it. Maybe back then he was reporting. I have to look back at his medical records. But I remember at the time he had an EKG and I cannot remember why it was. I think he was also feeling maybe more fatigued or, just general symptoms that you really can't put a finger on.
And it came back normal?
Yep. Yeah, because I remember giving that to the medical examiner too, because he was going to diagnose it with like the, what is it, long QT syndrome, or I can't remember the name of it. He was going to label it as that. I'm like, no, he had an EKG that showed up normal. Not until I spoke to some of you girls did I realize that's something that should be done every year, that it can change.
Right. And the QT interval can appear normal on an EKG. That doesn't mean that it absolutely was not long QT. But I know you're doing genetic testing, so
Yeah,
hopefully you'll get an answer there.
I think so. I do.
Yeah. It's gut wrenching just waiting to try to figure out why. And then you get an answer and it doesn't really bring you peace. It
Yeah.
doesn't make it better, but just opens up more questions. I don't know.
Well, and then I can protect Lexi. You know, if they
Exactly.
show up with something, I can spread it around to like my cousins and my nieces and nephews and say, hey, get tested every year. You know, we have this in our
Yeah.
family. Get it tested. It gives you some type of, I guess it's that feeling of, as a parent, you have no control, absolutely no control, you know, when something.
None. None at all. None at all. So tell me a little bit about what happened that day. So Logan is healthy, he's normal, living life, and he's in college at this point.
Yeah, so he was living the college life, you know, eating bad, sleeping bad, stress, you know, cramming for school and things.
But it's plenty of kids going through that, and it doesn't kill them, you know?
Right,
Yeah.
right. Oh my gosh, their diets and their habits are horrible. But
Yeah.
so yeah, he was at, my daughter lived off campus. Logan lived in a dorm, and they often kind of hung out together. They were really super, super close. And Thursday was Halloween, so Logan had come over with a roommate of his, and Lexi was getting ready, getting her outfit, getting her makeup. And I remember texting Logan because I had had like a really long day at work. It was snowing here. And I remember just quickly texting him, just asking how he was doing. And he was telling me about getting his costume ready. And then all of a sudden he just stopped talking to me, which is pretty normal. You know, you'll text your kids and Instagram them, and all of a sudden they don't answer back. So about a half hour probably after he stopped texting me, my phone rang, and it was my daughter. And she had told me that Logan had collapsed and wasn't breathing. And she's like, the paramedics are all here right now. Because to me, it was just surreal. Like, oh, he just fainted and he'll be fine. Um, so she said everyone was there. You know, I remember the first thing I asked Lexi was, does he have a heartbeat? And she's like, I don't think so. I don't know what's going on. And I asked her if I could talk to one of the paramedics, and they wouldn't come to the phone. So I kept pushing. I want to talk to someone, let them know that his mom's on the phone. I want to know what's going on. So finally, someone did come to the phone, one of the paramedics, and he just said, we're going to work on him for a while here at my daughter's apartment, and then we're going to take him to the hospital. That was all he told me. I'm like, okay, well, let me know, because I'm an hour away and I'm driving in right now. I remember at the time, just getting ready to leave the house, I thought, well, you know, I'm just going to bring him home with me when I get there, and I'm bringing him right home, and I'm going to kind of ball him out, you know, like, you need to eat better, you need to, stay hydrated. Because at the time I didn't know what was going on. But basically what had happened is he was laying on my daughter's bed and had gotten up to walk into the kitchen. My daughter was in the kitchen doing her makeup, and my daughter said he was fine. He walked normal. He didn't appear short of breath. It wasn't like gasping for air, but he made the, few feet into the kitchen, and then just told my daughter he had to sit down. So he went, she had an empty chair next to her, and he went to sit down, and he just like collapsed and fell over. My daughter caught him and just kind of lowered him to the floor. And she said, yeah, he was floppy. He didn't have any tone in him. She thought he was kidding, so she kind of pushed him and screamed his name, Logan, Logan, wake up, I'm calling 911. Nothing. So she ended up calling 911. And the sweet lady, I have to find out who she was. She coaxed my daughter, or coached my daughter through doing CPR, because my daughter said she remembers trying to get a pulse, but her hands were shaking so bad, I can't imagine. And Lexi had been trained in CPR because she was a camp counselor. So yeah, she had started CPR. The paramedics got there within 3 minutes, and at that point they kind of pushed her out of the room. So she had no clue what they were doing. Did what they were doing off site, and then took him to the hospital. So unfortunately, as I was driving in, he had passed away on my drive. So they wouldn't let it's like I gathered some people. I gathered Logan's aunt and uncle. I called them, say, hey, can you meet me at the hospital? Logan passed out. I called a good friend of mine, saying to her, can you meet me there? Lexi's by herself. I can't get there for at least another half an hour. So there were people that got there before I did, and they all knew that he was already gone. So once I got there is when the doctor sat down right away and just said, we did everything we could, but he died. So, wow, it's almost like I knew on the way to the hospital that he had passed away. I knew he was gone, but a part of me just needed to hear that, kind of thing. But yeah, it was devastating. I remember detectives showing up, because I guess when there's a unknown death or something. They sent the police in. It was just such a blur to me. So much I don't remember. I remember there being quite a few people there, but yeah. And then when I went to go see him, because I asked the doctor if I could go, be with him, and she said yeah. And he looked, I guess when your child's, not that this has happened before, I think my brain was expecting more. Broken bones, he's casted, there's trauma, something's wrong. He was just laying there peacefully like he was asleep, just perfect condition. And my brain just could not figure it out. So I remember asking them what happened, why did he die? We don't know. I remember asking them if they had used AED, and they're like, well, you can't do that when someone's, flatline, because he was in a systole already by the time they got there. So it's just so much information coming in that I just couldn't process it. Yeah, it
Did
was.
they attach him to life support?
No, when I got there and saw him in the ER, he had the breathing apparatus. They told me not to touch any of that. That was all he had.
It's
No.
so weird, like from one case to the next, how they determine, because same with Damani, they never connected him to life support. But
Yeah.
then you have some others who they connect them to life support to keep the organs viable.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I do remember that. Like, within minutes of me saying goodbye to him, I kept getting phone calls from organ and tissue donation. And that was the first thing I said. It's like, yeah, we can donate organs, but they said, no, it was too late for that, which I didn't understand either.
Yeah, I don't understand how they're making that determination in the hospital without running further tests, because from what I understand, there's tests that need to be run to determine whether the organs are viable, and that takes a couple of days to do. So it seems like some hospitals are not even going through that step.
Well, I know from watching videos, I think what had to happen, you had to have a beating heart. And when Logan passed away, they did something called an ultrasound. They were doing CPR for a long time. And then they called that and did an ultrasound of his heart, and they saw it wasn't even beating. So I think at that point, maybe the organs weren't viable because blood and oxygen wasn't circulating to keep them healthy. I think the kids that I've seen on videos where they were organ transplant, donors, they kept them on life support because their heart and stuff was still working.
Yeah,
But
I've talked to someone who their child didn't have a heartbeat, but because the CPR was administered the whole time. Because if you think about it, the CPR is pushing the blood through the body for the heart, which is why, like, if you attach someone to a monitor while they're getting CPR, it will give a heart rate, even if the heart is not beating on its own.
sure.
So I just know that some families have said that because CPR was administered the whole time, they were able to save the organs. So I don't know. That's just something that I was wondering. I've been wondering.
Yeah,
Um,
good
yeah,
question.
because I'm a little mad for me at the hospital
Mm-hmm.
that we went to, that that option wasn't even available to us, because in that moment we don't know, we're not in control of any of it.
No,
So
no,
yeah.
it's just, and since Logan passed away too, I've had to go out and do so much research on my own.
Yeah.
Just finding various websites and finding other parents, and I did all kinds of research on CPR and how the paramedics should have responded, how the hospital. I've done so much research,
Yeah.
and you just don't know. Even to this day, I still really don't know why Logan died. I know his heart stopped, but why? I have no clue. And that's the hard part, because you just don't have a definitive answer to say, oh, my son died from this, this, and this. I know it sounds kind of silly, but I think in our brains, to have a diagnosis, to actually have something that went wrong, makes more sense, I guess, to our brains.
I can relate. Even with the COVID-19 going on right now, that makes more sense,
Yeah.
and the societal response to the virus. But like for us, it's almost like our condition is not acknowledged, it's swept under the rug as if it doesn't exist. People aren't responding in, you know, doing something as a community. Like right now, we have a response to COVID-19. What is the response to sudden cardiac arrest as a society that we're willing to make? So it basically invalidates our loss. It makes it harder to deal with.
And whenever I post things too, I guess I kind of feel bad for my friends because I think well, if it happened to Logan, it can happen to their kids too. So I think it almost kind of scares them, like I don't want to post too much about it because I don't know. I guess at least with other things, you feel like you have a little bit of control, if that's the right word to use. You can tell parents, hey, make sure your kids wear their seatbelts. Hey, make sure your kids don't drink and drive. Or if your kids are depressed, get them, have them talk to someone. It just seems like there's other things you can do. But with cardiac arrest, I have nothing. I have nothing to look out for. I have nothing to, you know, prepare parents for, maybe in the tiniest bit of ways. Like if your son reports this or this, definitely get him to the doctor. There's nothing. It's just,
And I think that is the key message for us, is that there is nothing. It happens to kids out of the blink, in the blink of an eye. So don't wait to look for a symptom. Get them tested
mhm,
up front. Don't wait and think that something is going to present itself, because you and I had healthy, vibrant looking sons, both looking forward to what they were going to do that day. He was preparing to go to a Halloween party. Damani was preparing to go to the rodeo. And if they felt sick, they wouldn't have been making those plans and preparations.
right.
So get your kids tested regardless, because I'd rather know what they're experiencing. And the sports physicals are not doing the job. It's not detecting the conditions. And once this happened to me and I found out that it happens as often as it does, that 7,000 kids a year pass away from sudden cardiac arrest out of the hospital, it baffled me. It was mind blowing. I couldn't believe that could actually be happening, and then we just don't know about it. So
Right.
I felt misled and lied to by society, because we think that, like you said, you tell them to wear the seatbelts, you tell them to be safe, you tell them don't text and drive, don't drink and drive. And we think that we're doing what we can to protect our kids, but there's this whole other monster waiting in the corner for us
Yeah.
that we don't even know exists.
Right. And we don't know how to treat it. We don't know what signs to look for. It's just, and I guess when I think about Logan too, it's like so fast. Like 1 minute I'm talking to him, a half hour later, he's gone. No symptoms, no indication that there was something wrong, because I probably would have been all over that. And I guess the other thing too, my daughter had recently reached out to me saying, Mom, we need to get an AED just to have at home. And I'm like, that was another point I had, because with Logan, I mean, CPR was initiated pretty quick. Um, but that wasn't enough to save him. It was almost like, I wonder if maybe he had been at a sporting event, they would have had an AED. Would that have made the difference? Because I know I've been seeing cardiac survivors, and they're posting their stories. It seems like a lot of them had an AED pretty quickly,
Yeah,
and a
yeah.
lot of them had no clue what was happening. They just all of a sudden described it as like falling asleep, and that was, the end. They didn't have symptoms. So that part baffles me too. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's like, just to know that I could have had this one device
Yeah.
cost $1,000, but
Yeah.
I would have my child if I would have had it. I didn't know that I
Yeah.
needed an AED at home. I didn't know that this could happen outside of a sporting event or outside of
I mean,
physical activity.
he played sports when he was younger, hard. I mean, hockey's a pretty demanding sport. Never fainted, never had heart problems, never was like excessively short of breath. It's just makes you wonder how a heart can stop, but you're doing all these activities and being, pretty active, and nothing then. So why now? Yeah, I don't know. The questions are endless.
What is your belief like in regards to like people's life? And like, some people believe that when we're born, God already knows when we're going to be called home.
Yeah. Yeah, my pastor said that to me when I was planning Logan's funeral. That was one thing that just stuck out in my head, because he's like, God knew this was his last day. Of course, it made me angry, because I was so mad at God. I was so, why? Like you said, what did I do wrong? Am I being punished? Is this karma thing because I said this or did this, or did Logan do something? Um, I guess that's what I have to believe, and I'm getting better at it. I'm learning to kind of accept it, because for the first 5 or 6 months, I couldn't. I kept having to dig and dig and dig, and I'm not coming up with answers. So, um, but yeah, you have to believe that in the book of life, our names are all written there. We know when our last day is gonna, or we don't, but God does. And yeah, I hold on to that. That just brings me some kind of comfort in a world where I have no answers.
And no control, because that's the only thing. It doesn't bring me comfort that, he was taken early, but
Right.
whenever I start wrestling with myself and wondering what I could have done differently, um, just to know that I'm relinquishing and surrendering all control, because I don't have any control. There's so many things that I thought that I did have control over. Now, this realization that I have none.
Well, I think in life too, as humans, we take things for granted. We keep doing the same thing. Like, I drive to work the same way every day, and heavens forbid I've never had a car accident. So I think, oh, I'm safe. I'm fine. I do this all the time. It's life. I've been fine. But then something like this happens, and you do realize, when people say life is fragile, and people will say, be thankful for each day you have, because you don't know if you're going to wake up. I used to kind of like, oh yeah, right. That happens to older people. But wow, is that statement not truer, than anything I've heard? And I guess the thing with Logan too is, when he was with his sister, he was going to go back to his dorm. And I'm so glad he didn't, because Lex and I talked about this. What if he had walked back to his dorm and this happened? And we would have found him on a sidewalk somewhere. If he'd gone back to his dorm and laid down, and he would have passed away in his sleep, and they would have found him for an hour or two. You think of, I guess it sounds weird too. I guess I'm grateful in that way that Lexi was there with him, as hard as that was and unbearable as that was for her. It had brought some peace to my heart, knowing she witnessed it. She saw what happened. She knew there was no foul play. She saw it all. As hard as that was for her, to me, it was like a hidden blessing, because he was with his sister, and people knew what he was doing, kind of thing. So yeah, you
Yeah,
find peace in tiny little things like that.
yeah,
But
yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
life is fragile, and it's something that we come to expect that we'll always have. But for me, it's so weird because I always spoke about that even before this happened. I always had this like deep knowing that life was just so short, and that, we had to make the most out of every day. I remember, because I was a teacher, my last lesson that I taught was about life being short. And I remember I had, sometimes I would tape the lessons. This lesson got taped, and it made my heart just skip beats watching it. It was so hard to watch, because I asked the student, what if you die tomorrow?
mm,
In the lesson. And we were talking about how we spend our time and how to make our time more meaningful. So that just sticks with me. Like, it's so crazy. But when we had that conversation, it was more so, don't take unnecessary risks still, don't go partying,
right.
don't do drugs. And, it was still the fact that you can die if you don't live the right way. Let me ask you this. How has your process been? I mean, 7 months, it's still all so new. Are you still in shock, do you think? Does it sink in that it's real?
Yeah, I mean, I keep seeing that moms will say the second year is really hard, so that kind of worries me a bit. For the first few months, even at Logan's funeral and all the processing of going through that, I guess I don't really remember crying a whole lot. I mean, now I get those waves, like last night, for example. Nighttime's hard. But I saw a post, and it just made me start crying, so I still get that. I guess I'm still maybe in shock. I mean, there are times when I let my brain wander. Like, I really, like, okay, you got to think about this. Like, I keep replaying in my mind, seeing Logan in the ER and seeing how beautiful he looked. Um, yeah, I mean, I guess maybe a mixture of both. But I'll force myself sometimes to think about it. But other times, when thoughts of Logan come to my head, I'll push them away, because it's like, I can't go there right now, or I don't want to be sad, or, I guess I focus more on what can I do to keep his memory alive. I guess that's what I've really been focusing on more now than ever. Is little things I can do to keep his memory alive is what I've been focusing on. Um,
How has that been? How do you get support with like family and friends keeping his memory alive along with you?
yeah, Logan's friends have been incredible. I think it's strange. You think of adults as being more, wise, and I mean, and they have been, but most of the support I've gotten has been from Logan's friends. I mean, they've just been amazing, calling or, just saying, hey, we really miss Logan. Can we stop by and see you? I'm like, absolutely. It's like, I love talking about him. I mean, there's been a few of my friends that I'm close to that have been really supportive. I've got a good handful of people like that. But for the most part, unfortunately, people have just kind of gone on with their lives. I just don't hear from people anymore like I did maybe the first month after Logan died. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of hard. But the fact that Logan's friends are there because I feel they knew him the best these last 2 years. Um, just talking to them and being around them. Logan always used to bring his friends over. I used to love it when he had his friends over and we'd all kind of hang out or they'd hang out in his room. And I really miss that. But the fact that they do stop over to say hi and hang out with us has really been really healing for me. Um, yeah, I couldn't imagine doing this without talking to people. I mean, I'm so glad for you guys. I go on Facebook a ton and read various posts and read what moms say. That part's been really, really helpful to me. I know for a lot of people they don't want to talk about it, but I do. Just talk, talk, talk.
Yeah, that's a way of keeping our babies alive, you know.
Yeah.
We don't want to let go of them. If we stop talking about them, then that's in a sense like as if they never were here. I want to remember those times. Want to remember the impact that they had on me and on their friends and on this world.
Yeah, that they were here, that
Yeah.
they did made a difference. I know a lot of people probably think not talking about it is helpful, but for me, like I said, it's just the opposite. That's all I want to do is talk about, his past and how he died. And I mean, I think I've gotten a little bit better, but my daughter's like, Mama, you talk nonstop about it. I'm like, yeah, but it helps me. I don't know how to explain it, but it helps. It helps me feel connected to him, I guess.
And I think that's an important message for people to hear is that, you know, please stop avoiding talking about our kids, even if it makes you uncomfortable, the other person. If it makes us comfortable, then perhaps people should be a little bit more willing to be uncomfortable in that moment just to bring us a little more comfort because our whole day is just filled with discomfort, you know,
Yeah.
and missing and longing for our kids.
Well, and someone put it really well too. Like, that's all we have. You know, Going forward, parents can talk about, like for Logan's age group, oh, graduating from college or getting their first job or getting married. I'm never going to have those conversations about Logan. So I have these old memories. That's all I have of him. So it's like talking about that makes them feel like they're still here. And I guess you talked about shock. I guess the part of me, I catch myself going back to like, oh, he'll be back later, he's just like overseas right now, or he's gone to college and he'll be back. I think your brain kind of says that to you to kind of ease maybe the pain or the unknowing. It's just weird how our brains work, how we have to figure things out you know
But like what you said, I do feel that way. It's not so much that he's overseas or in college, but I know that he's somewhere else and he's waiting on me. Like soon, one day, we'll be together again. You know,
yeah.
this is still a part of my journey. And me being reunited with him has a lot to do with what I do with my days left on this earth. Am I going to walk strongly within the purpose that God has given me and allow my son's purpose to now permeate through my soul and be a part of my purpose so that together we achieve something that never would have been achieved, you know, outside of these circumstances.
Right.
It's a
Right.
new purpose. It's a new purpose. And I'm a new person. I'm a new
Yeah.
being. I'm not who I was before. I'm
Mhm.
completely born again and just walking with purpose through this life. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. I know what you're saying. It's just, and I think too, it's that sense of hope. I just think if I didn't have God in my life, what would I be hopeful for? Like that I will get to see Logan again. If I didn't have that, I don't know what I'd be thinking right now.
Yeah.
So that too has been really helpful and comforting, I think, to me. That there will be a time when I'll get to see him again. Yeah. Yeah, I guess it hasn't hit me. I don't think so intensely like I probably should be and process the memories and like, wow, I'm never going to see him again. I don't really say that a lot to myself. And I think when I do get to that point, that'll be hard. It's affecting the lives of young, healthy, vibrant people with this whole future in front of them. I know so many diagnoses can be that way, but the fact that it was so sudden, and for me, in Logan's case, there was really not a whole lot we could do to bring him back. It was so fast, so unexpected, no symptoms, just instantaneous. So, I mean, if we can prevent any parent from going through what we did, I think even one would make a huge difference.
Did you know a lot about sudden cardiac arrest before this happened to you?
Never heard of it. I mean, I had to go look it up. I had to, after after the doctor explained it to me, because I'm like, you mean like a heart attack? And they're like, no. And I had to go look it up, the difference between sudden cardiac arrest and a heart attack. So, I mean, I keep saying that over and over. It doesn't make a difference how kids die, but I think to have something tangible to say this is what caused it somehow explains something to our brains. But to not have that answer and just can happen to anyone. You could be walking down the street and all of a sudden collapse and die. I mean, that just is so incredibly unbelievable to me, you know? Yeah. My child looked healthy. He was healthy. I can't believe this kind of thing happens with not a warning, no symptoms. He just collapsed and died.
I'll just keep us all in my prayers. This is a journey that never ends. From what I've been talking to people, it's going to be a lifelong journey to continue this process of healing. I don't understand why we were chosen for this battle, but it's now our war. So I'll fight it alongside with you, sister.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, right after, the thought of working with kids again was just so hard. It was like I poured so much of myself into everybody else's kids. When you said no regrets, that was like my one regret, was that I just spent so much time with everybody else's kids. I still spent time with my kids, but I just wish that if I had known that I only had 17 years, I would have doubled up a little bit more within that time frame.
Well, things that maybe weren't as important, like all the times I stayed later at work, because I would do that. I'm like, okay, I got to get all this done. I'm not going to go home until it's done. So, I wish I would have, again, if I had known, I would have spent more of that time with Logan.
Yeah.
I would have done more with him. And I mean, one person did say to me, don't get into the I could have, I should have,
Oh, baby, that's torture. Yes. Yeah, as much as you can, try to stay away from that, because it's hard. People can say that. It's easy to say, but I say it and I still go through that periodically. But it's such a hard hole to dig back out of once you start going down the I could have, would have, should have.
I think the hardest thing for me, this sounds so bad, is you see young people just live their lives recklessly. Like you hear about it in the news, people drinking and driving, people doing all kinds of drugs, and not, I don't want to come off the wrong way. I would never want for anyone to die, because I think even now after Logan passed away, that would be so much more painful. But you look at how some people live their lives. I hope this doesn't sound bad. And you look at our sons and it's like, yeah, they weren't perfect, but they lived good lives. Why them? I know that sounds so mean, but that's just the part I don't get. People that just don't care about their lives at all and do risky things or act foolish, and they're still walking around. And I know it's not for us to determine, that's a God thing, but that's probably the hardest thing for me.
Don't feel bad for that thought. We've all had that thought. I've had that thought. Even as a teacher, knowing that I've worked with kids that have been in jail, that have robbed people, that were on drugs, and just, or with parents, because like, even, how we blame ourselves or think we could have done more. I've worked with kids whose parents have been completely absent in their lives and they're still here. Yeah. And there was nothing that we did wrong,
Yeah.
and our kids didn't do anything wrong. And I just keep reminding myself of that. We're not the one that determines life and death, but it is hard.
Well, and something in the doctor, since Logan was a tissue donor, this helped me too. I had spoken to the doctor up in Minnesota who had done the autopsy of Logan's heart because they sent that out. And I was talking to her about what, could it have been this, could it have been that, because I just had a bunch of factors. Logan was not a huge person. He was really tiny, didn't eat a lot. So I'm bringing up all this stuff. And she's like, Monica, she's like, people with healthy hearts do this stuff all the time and nothing happens. Like, if his heart had been healthy, this wouldn't have mattered. Because you see people, thousands and millions of people live this way. She's like, something was underlying that we may never find out, but there was something in his body that wasn't right, and that's why he passed away from it. I guess that brought me comfort too, because I've always been thinking, well, maybe it was this, or maybe it was hormones, or maybe he wasn't eating enough, and maybe because he didn't wait. You pull all those things in together, and she's like, no, because there's tons of people in the world like that. And like we said, there's tons of people who do a lot more risky things than Logan could have ever dreamed of, and they are still alive. And it's
And
like
there's
kind
tons of people who live with conditions too,
of,
if you think about it. So then that takes it back to just the whole surrendering, for me, surrendering to God's will and what He allowed. Because you'll hear of people who OD, and they come back because it wasn't their time yet. Or you hear of people who are in this car that gets balled up and they know that no one's going to be able to survive, and they walk out from the ashes unscraped,
right.
un, unscarred.
Yeah.
And then something as simple as this, it's like switching a light switch off, a very peaceful way to go,
Yeah.
that our kids are just gone. And yeah, they have some type of underlying condition, but it's so minuscule that it can't even be, they can't even pinpoint what it was. They just know that the heart stopped. But like you said, it's not like malformed or something to where they can explain why.
Right.
So for me, it's like, our life is a gift to us. When this happened, I always thought Damani was mine. I remember telling him one time, I'm responsible for you, when I was being really strict. And he was like, why are you so strict? Because all his friends could go to parties, but
Mhm.
I was protective. And I said, because you're my responsibility.
Right.
I'm in charge of making sure that you're okay. And then when this happened, it's like, little girl, if you only knew, you were not in charge.
Right. Yeah. What is there saying that God just borrows them to us?
Loans them.
Ultimately,
Yeah.
that we borrow them.
Yeah. And I say it's a gift. I say it's a gift. Every life is a gift. It's a beautiful gift that we get
Mhm.
to have, but we don't get to keep. We get
Yeah.
to have this gift, but eventually we have to give that gift back for a time, because the promise is that, once we've fulfilled our purpose, we'll be reunited with our gifts, because
Yeah.
they're part of our soul. That can never be taken away. That's why we can still feel them. That's why we can still feel that connection to them.
I've not had dreams. I mean, I want them. My daughter's like, no, you don't, Mom, because then you wake up and you realize he's gone, and that stays with you for days.
I don't think people get that. Like, okay,
No.
yeah, it's been 7 months. Yeah, for me, it's been 14 months. But every day because when you sleep, you're kind of peaceful. And then when
Yeah.
you wake up, it's like, you said the nights are the worst. Nights are bad, but then
Mhm.
mornings are bad too, because I always have to like give myself this pep talk to get through the day, because every morning I wake up and it's like, oh, wow, okay, this is real.
I think I've gotten better with that.
Yeah.
I talk to him, like when I'm by myself or in my car, I'll talk to him and I'll just relive memories. Like I'll pass this high school. I'm like, gosh, Logan, remember I used to drop you off and this would happen. And then, I just kind of go through everything. Or I see the library and I'm like, remember when you used to go downstairs and play games with your friends? I talk to him like in that way to kind of keep him with me. Sometimes I feel he's near me. Like if I really get into myself and think, which I don't allow myself to do a whole lot, then I feel like I can feel him. But yeah, unfortunately, for the most part, I don't. It makes me sad, kind of, because I'm like, Logan, are you mad at me, or did I do something that you're not coming around? I mean, I see little
Just
signs.
said that you kind of avoid it. You've said that a couple of times that like you start and then you don't want to go there.
Yeah.
And I think maybe, and of course, this is just my opinion, but we avoid leaning into the grief. And when they say lean into the grief, that's what they mean. Just kind of like really allowing yourself to feel all of that.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah.
you'll be there when you're ready. You have to get yourself ready.
I've always been this kind of person though. I've always been someone who just, I wish I could reminisce more and reflect back at anything in my life. I always just been like, okay, I'm moving forward. I'm not going to look back. I mean, obviously with Logan, it's been different because of the memories, but like everything that's really ever happened to me in my life, I don't really think about it a lot. I just keep going forward. So I think that's just who I am as a person, maybe my personality. I don't know. But no, I really want to, yeah, I really want to dive in deep to, Logan and him passing away. It's like I feel like I'm really superficial right now. I need to dive in deeper to that. Like maybe someday it will hit me like, gosh, you're never going to see him again. you know
But don't rush it, don't rush that realization or that thought to say that you're never going to see them again, because that all depends on how you look at it, because you will see them again, maybe not that physical form, or
yeah,
but you will be reconnected with him again.
and that
But
could, yeah, I think of
yeah,
that, not to sound morbid. But
right.
yeah, dying to me, other than leaving my daughter behind, dying to me is not as upsetting as it used to be to me. It's like, okay, I don't mind.
I don't. Yeah, I just had that conversation with someone else this morning. I said, I don't care. People might think I'm crazy, but the same things that people quote from scripture with saying that to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord, and to say that to be in his eternal peace, these are things that we, strive for as human beings. So why is it wrong for me to say that one day? I mean, I'm not saying that I'm going to bring it about because I'm not in control of that, but when it does happen, it's not the end. Death is not the end to me. This is a realization that came to me through losing my son, that, you know, there's another realm that we're going to be in after this. And, I look forward to it now, because that's going to reunite me with my son, but then also with my creator.
Yes.
Also with my creator, who now I have an even deeper love for because of the gift that he gave me. He chose me to be Damani's mom. He chose you to be Logan's mom. He could have given Logan to anybody.
Right.
He could have
Right.
given Damani to anybody. And when we think about those kids and those people who are on earth and not necessarily living the best life, using their days in the best manner, that comes to me too. That
Yeah.
I could have been the mother of a kid who gave their mother grief their entire life, and I wasn't given that child. And I'm not disrespecting anybody else's journey, but I
Right.
know that for 17 years I had the most perfect angel here on earth,
Yeah.
and perfect in his own way. Nobody is perfect. Of course he made mistakes. I'm not saying that he
Right.
didn't, but he was perfect for me.
He was a good boy.
He was perfect
He
for
made
me.
mama, yeah, he made mama proud. I mean, yeah.
This lockdown, I know has been a little isolating for us all.
Yeah.
It complicates grief, but overall, he's being a trooper. He's really doing a good job pushing through.
Yeah, I always try to remember that too. I think as parents, obviously our grief path is a little different than siblings. They've got their whole life that they plan together. Even after something would happen to me, I always say to my kids, you guys need to be best friends, because when I die, I'm watching you. And that would make me happy to know that you guys have each other.
Yeah,
So yeah, yeah. Well, like your son, my daughter's an only child now too. And it's just, yeah, I think about her losses, her great losses, and his future she'll have another brother. But yeah, it's hard to think about too.
yeah.
But I'm so glad I have you. Just know that.
Thank you. I'm glad that I have you too, and keep fighting a good fight, and fighting for yourself first and foremost. And have you tried journaling at all?
I'm usually not a writer. My daughter presented that to me. I've got like two or three journals. I'll write in different ones. Like if I have
Mm-hmm.
real, especially when I'm sad, I'll do it. I wish I could have started from the beginning, but like you have so many thoughts in your head that I wanted to put together. So I'll write in a couple different journals. I'll look back at it. But yeah, again, I just don't get really deep. I think that's why I'm not a writer. Like some people can just write out their thoughts and get really deep into it. I just have never been able to go there, but
Mm-hmm.
I'll write down more memories about how I'm feeling, and and I guess we have Facebook too, so a lot of what I do is on Facebook. I'll write how I feel, or pictures that pop up, and I kind of track it that way. So in a year from now, these memories all come back again.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I need to journal more. I do. There's so many things I need to do more of, especially with this lockdown. I'm like, I start exercising again. I'm gonna clean my house. I'm gonna do all this stuff, and yeah,
Girl, I exercise and I try, here and there. And I used to exercise all the time before this happened. I was a coach, so I was exercising daily. And now I just can't sometimes bring myself to it. Some of the things that I enjoyed before,
hmm
I just don't enjoy anymore.
yeah. People don't know what we're going through until they've been through it. You know,
Yeah,
even before Logan died, I had no clue what to say to people who lost someone.
yeah,
I mean, obviously I go to funerals for people that were quite a bit older, not that that makes a difference, but you go, you show up. I guess I didn't think about it a whole lot. It's just like, okay, someone died. That's life. And I think until it happens to you and you dive into more of those feelings and the camaraderie with other parents who have lost their kids, it's just like a whole new realm. Your life, like you said, your life before and after is so different. Um,
yeah,
but happiness, I mean, it's definitely something I want to achieve. I don't want to walk around being sad all the time. I mean, I guess that's just not my personality. At first I thought I was doing Logan a disservice. Like, how can you be happy when Logan's not here? And how can you like go to the beach or go for a walk? Logan can't do that, But then
mm-hmm.
I thought, no, you're right. He's with me. And maybe
Yeah,
the way he can see and enjoy life is through me and through my eyes. So I want to do all this stuff to, you know, have him still carry on with how things are on earth, I guess. I
yeah. Yeah, and I agree. I don't definitely don't want to walk around sad all the time, but I think that we sometimes look at happiness as the opposite of sadness, and
Mhm.
I don't. I've come to understand that peace is the opposite of sadness, to be
Yeah.
at peace with something. And so I can walk the beach in peace. I can
hmm
go on trips and I can go through life and live with purpose, with peace in my heart. But this like when I say happiness, it's like the fact that, I need to be smiling all the time, or I need to always look at things, on the bright side. Well, I can be at peace and carry this with me, but that happiness is just, I don't know. And I think that I have moments of happiness for sure. I
Yeah.
have moments of happiness, but this whole thing of where I just have to be elated,
Yeah.
much pressure in the world. Like
Yeah.
outside of this, like there's so much, and I think that this give has given me an awakening that has allowed me to help people even outside of grief. I can relate to people on a level that I didn't necessarily understand before. Like you
Right.
said, I tried to help people before, but now I understand differently someone that's going through a depression or someone who's ready to give up on things, and I'm able to help them in a different way. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think not to classify ourselves, but yeah, I think we've been through the worst of the worst. I mean, I know that this is so sad too. I say to my daughter, I can't believe I'm grading a death experience. I mean, you always think about like our sons we think died peacefully, and there's other parents whose sons or kids died traumatically, and I think that'd be
yeah,
so much harder. Or parents whose kids have just disappeared and they never find them again. Oh gosh, I think that'd be so much harder. You start grading different death aspects. Just things that I thought would make me happy are forever different now, forever changed.
yeah, yeah. I definitely appreciate you, Monica, and I'm here for you anytime you want to send, I'm up through the night most of the time.
I
So,
noticed that. I noticed that because I am too. And I'll see you on. I'm like, oh, she must be up late like I am.
yes, yes, I'm up. My days and nights are like shifted.
Mine too.
Are you thinking of doing a foundation, or are you going to partner with someone?
I think I'll partner with someone. I guess I still just don't know what to do. I mean, we talked about the EKGs, and I have posted a few things on Facebook about, make sure you get your annual EKG. But then I've also heard doctors or parents saying, well, you get so many false positives or something. So it's like, I want to, I don't know. I guess I don't know where I am with that.
With the false positives, it still catches more. You know what I mean? That's like telling people don't go get a mammogram, but we know that they're false positives or mammograms and you have to repeat them. So why is it different? Because it's an EKG for the heart, something that can cause sudden death. From what I've been told, it's like 86%, it catches about 86% of the conditions. So there are some conditions that it doesn't catch. I would be more concerned with that than the false positives. So there's some conditions that it doesn't catch, but that's where the AED and the CPR awareness comes in, so that the ones that we miss, those are not caught with prevention, but are caught with response.
Right.
So